Today on episode number 467 of the School of Podcasting's morning announcements, we have a phenomenal, wait till you hear about this, because of my podcast story. We're going to have a little podcast rewind on some of the really cool things that are being said on the web. And I've got a strategy that'll help you fan the flames of your audience and help it grow. Hit it, ladies.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, look, here's what we do here. First of all, if you're brand new, thank you so much. We talk about all things podcasting, from planning to promoting to growing your audience. This is what we're going to talk about today. I help you massage your message. I help you tackle the technology, and I help you flatten the learning curve and get you on the road to pain-free podcasting. Our website is schoolofpodcasting.com. Use the coupon code LISTENER, that is LISTENER, and save on your first month when you're ready to start podcasting. Well, check this out. We've heard some really bizarre and inspiring things from other people's podcasts. Marc Maron this year has got to interview kind of two of his childhood heroes, and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, better known as Mick and Keith. Right, doing all right. You ever notice how Mick Jagger doesn't pronounce half the consonants at the end of words? Do it all right, yeah, gonna do what I... Anyway, anyone want to wave their finger while they do that? And you just kind of have to do the Mick when you do Mick. So we got to interview the Stones. That would be like me interviewing Ted Nugent. And, well, just listen to this. Check that. Marc Maron. Keep in mind, Marc Maron's podcast is called WTF. And I think we all know what that stands for. Listen to this.
All right. If everything goes as planned, on Monday, I will post a WTF, an episode of this show that you're listening to now, featuring myself in conversation with, talking to, at my home in my garage, me talking to the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama. That is what's happening Monday. If everything goes well tomorrow, I'm talking to him tomorrow.
And I was just at his website, WTFpod.com. There's a picture of the President of the United States in his garage. I was like, wow, how cool is that? Very cool. Because think about this. Marc Maron, if you're not familiar with Marc, this is a guy that really had a really bad drug problem at one point. Apparently was a bit of a jerk to many people, burned a lot of bridges to the point where his manager was like, look, I can't get you any more work because anybody that would give you work hates your guts. He started a podcast. He had been fired from radio, and he snuck into the studio. They didn't take away his pass key. And he started what is now one of the most popular podcasts out there, and one that now has the President of the United States. That is amazing to me. So I did get an interesting voicemail here from my buddy Marc, and I'm going to throw this in here.
Hey, Dave, Mark Johansson with Moto Answers podcast.
Hey, Marc.
So last night I'm working the late shift, going down the highway listening to podcasts because, hey, who listens to radio anymore, right?
Not
and
me.
The podcast I'm listening to is hosted by a guy who shall remain unnamed for now, but he's been on the scene for about 2 years, has 100+ episodes, and he's strategically positioned himself to help businesses add podcasting to their arsenal of marketing tools. Anyway, about 5 minutes into the episode, he states, and I quote, "So podcasting literally was developed by iTunes and by, Mac and Apple, but it was developed by iTunes as a platform where people could access audio and video resources." And he goes on.
Yeah.
Dave, I almost had a car accident. I was like, what? What did he say? Or better, what did he not say? I mean, no mention of Adam Curry, no mention of Dave Weiner. I mean, in that short period of time, this guy lost any podcasting street cred he had with me. I'm not even sure I can continue to listen to his episodes. I was just stupefied. Anyway, I mean, just for the record, I'm not going to stop listening to any podcasts that don't know the difference between a condenser and a dynamic mic. I know, shocker, right? Coming from me. And I'll even continue to listen to those who teach others how to podcast and still perpetuate the new and noteworthy myth.
Yeah.
But, I just was, as you can see, I was flabbergasted.
Yes.
Anyway, just had to share that with you, and I'll see you at Podcast Movement.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you so much. But here, he was inspired. That person, whoever it is, inspired Mark to reach out and say to me, wow. And, I occasionally get caught up, if you're a regular listener to the show, watching other consultants, because anybody, can put out their shingle now and say, I can teach you how to podcast, because if you have a podcast, in theory, you could. But I was listening to a duo who just launched a podcast course, explain how when they had to record an episode 4 times due to a strange white noise they get when using Skype. And I'm just shouting at my dashboard, turn off the setting to let Skype adjust your volume. And here's the fun thing. If someone hired me to troubleshoot that problem, that phone call would take about 5 minutes. And some people sometimes say, in my case, I would bill them for 5 minutes. I don't round up to 15 or a half hour, things like that. And currently right now, a 5-minute call would cost you about $12.50. And some people might say, how can you charge $12.50 for a 5-minute phone call? And the truth is that phone call took me 10 years to play with the technology, find out all the ins and outs, and, make sure I help you avoid those pitfalls. There's a great quote that says, smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. And I'm here to say, look, in some cases, I've made the mistakes for you. My dilemma is if I start calling people out, well, then I look like some sort of weird egotistical jerk. And if I say nothing, then there's a chance that you might fall prey to their crap, for lack of a better phrase. And so when in doubt, I just try to focus on making the best content I can that's going to inspire people to start a podcast. It's going to impact you. And I'm just going to let the chips fall and hope that you then tell other people, no, here's the dude you got to go talk to. If you truly impact your audience, they will tell other people about your show.
In case you missed it, it's time for a podcast rewind.
I had the pleasure of being on the Podcasters Roundtable. This is hosted by Ray Ortega. It also it features myself and Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity to Podcast. Ray, of course, is from the Podcaster Studio. But we also had Jared Morris, Tawny Finneran from Podcasters Group Therapy. Jared Morris is from Rainmaker.fm. He also does the Showrunner course. Pilar Orti, and we were talking about co-hosts. And it was, if you have or are thinking of starting a podcast, this had some really good just insights from people who have been there and done that.
Moving back a little bit, James, back to the where do you find a co-host? He said he actually had a co-host drop out due to time issues, but he was able to replace her with someone he had interviewed for another podcast. So you may have had someone who interacted with your show. And Dave, that was similar to your experience. Your audience stepped up and said, you sound terrible, Dave. I would like to help out.
Pretty much. So, and it helped out a lot. So that was the beauty of it. And in that case, Jim and I haven't really officially sat down and talked about it, but he said the one day, he goes, well, I'll do color commentary. He goes, you just do your thing and I'll just chime in here and there. And I think that's one of the things sometimes you have to decide, who's going to be Howard, who's going to be Robin, who's going to be, and
who's Binky, who's the Wiz.
Exactly.
That's an SOP, School of Podcasting joke. Go listen.
Yeah, that point should not be understated because it can be really confusing to the audience if it's just a free-for-all. Like Ray, you're leading this, so we're taking the cues from you, and that's really, really important. With a 2-person show, when you're going back and forth, it's a conversation. again, once you get more than that, I think there's got to be a person who's the designated kind of traffic controller. And, if you need to prep for 10, 15 minutes beforehand about what the topics are or so you know what direction, for us, it's a live show that, boom, goes live as soon as the game ends. We don't even have time to prep. So we know kind of the common sections that we start each show off with, and then it's just a conversation. But I think there's got to be one person that is directing it and saying, okay, now to you, so it's not a constant just free for all.
And I will have links to this out at schoolofpodcasting.com/467, or you can just go over to podcastersroundtable.com. And if you want to get notified when those happen, or if you want to be on the show, sign up for Ray's email list as well. But I do want to point out some things. Number one, I want to thank Max Flight from Airplane Geeks. He was listening to the episode where we're talking about dealing with people that just don't like you, and the fact that in some cases there are reasons why we should just ignore them. Actually, in some cases, there are a lot of reasons why we should ignore them. And he said, one of the things you can do to kind of really separate the men from the boys, for lack of a better phrase, invite them to a discussion. So if somebody says, hey, Dave, I had this happen. Somebody sent me an email and they said, hey, I just want to let you know, I visited some of the different people's websites. There was, I went and saw Daniel J. Lewis. I saw Ray Ortega's. I saw a couple other people, and I saw yours. And you are horrible. It basically is how I took it, of course, which is not what the person said at all. And I said, wow, thank you so much for the constructive feedback. Can we get on Skype sometime? And we actually did. And it turns out he was saying, no, I think your website's kind of bland compared to theirs. And I'm like, oh. And it's one of the things I'm working on right now is my website before our New Media Expo kicks back into gear. By the way, speakers, can we take a 10-second tangent? If you want to speak at New Media Expo, we are accepting speakers, and the dates have been announced, of which that is not in my notes, but go to nmxlive.com and you can see all the details there. Right now I want to tell you about really cool stuff that I've heard. And the other one is my buddy Eric K. Johnson, the podcasttalentcoach.com. Man, he is doing, again, I think I mentioned this last week, a 4-part series on interviewing that if you do interviews, you have to go listen to this. Check him out at podcasttalentcoach.com. I am dying for the 4th installment of this because everyone, if you're a new listener to me, if you get me to think, I am your friend for life. If you get me to go, maybe that would help me. I'm all about constant improvement. So, but Max, thank you so much for the tip on invite them to tea, because some people have the courage to criticize. They may not have the courage to say it to your face. The other one I wanted to point out, and you'll hear him later in the show, Daniel J. Lewis, congratulations on 5 years of the Noodle Mix Network. And he had an episode where he, again, shared his insights from 5 years. So, wise people learn from other people's mistakes. And it was a really good show. So congrats to Daniel on that.
This podcast is part of the Power of Podcasting Network. Find it at powerofpodcasting.com. Changing the world, one download at a time.
So I was driving to Michigan, and my GPS had taken me the same way it always does. I've been hanging out a lot in Michigan lately. And I looked up and it said, take whatever exit ramp on right and go north. Except I looked up and there was a giant road closed sign, and I was like, oh boy. And I started following detour signs, and I was supposed to be going north, but now I was going south, and the sun was going down, and I was getting really stressed out. I am not a huge fan of driving, not so much driving at night. I'm not that old. I don't like to drive at night or in the rain. But it was interesting that I'm listening to podcasts, naturally, and Moondog Marketing came on. This is from John Biscall, and I've been on his show. He's been on this show, and I love the way that John breaks down marketing concepts into kind of wording that really anyone can grasp. And the bonus was he was talking to Andy White, Dr. Pod. And to me, it'd be like having Ted Nugent and Eddie Van Halen on the same show. Both these guys just rock. And Andy does the internet marketing podcast for Site Visibility. And so I was like, holy cow. And then I'm listening. I'm kind of freaking out because I don't know where I'm going. But it was interesting because just having a podcast of one that I really liked, it was kind of like, all right, it's time to pull out the big guns. I'm not going to try something new. I'm going to go back to the tried and true. I'm going to listen to my buddy John. And right there in the middle of the podcast, what do I hear but this?
And also my mate Dave Jackson of the School of Podcasting. Check him out because those guys are still doing it. Their podcasts on the podcasting, as far as I know, are still going, and they're terrific guys. Both of them.
They are.
So
Dave's been on the show. Dave's been on the show. He's a really, really great guy.
Oh, I love Dave. Yeah, we always have such a laugh. We normally spend about an hour in the pre-chat before we start recording. Whenever I record with Dave, but he's a super guy.
And it made my day. I was like, wow, hey, it's like, to me, having Ted Nugent and Eddie Van Halen on the stage at the same time, and they go, hey, why don't you join us for a second? And be like, whoa. So one of the strategies that you can do to help grow your audience is we say to get them involved, but to honestly incorporate them into the show. And so I started then, I was like, you know what? I always say that, people get giddy when you mention them. And then I turned on the Ask Pat show, starring Pat Flynn, and I heard this.
Hey, Pat, my name is Michael DeVoe, and let me just say, if I get featured on the show, I'm going to flip out in a good way, of course. My question is, how would you turn followers into relationships?
Listen what Pat says.
Love your show. Love the Smart Passive Income show as well. Keep it up. Thanks, Pat.
Hey, Michael, what's up? Thank you so much for the question. Don't flip out. Don't flip out, even though you've probably flipped out already that you've heard your name and your voice here on the show. A lot of people do that, actually, but it's so cool. We're going to send you a t-shirt for having your question featured on the show. I'd love a picture of it at some point.
And Jason, I'm sorry, we'll get to Jason in a second. Henry Jasper, because I went to the School of Podcasting members. I go, has this ever happened to you? Have you had your name mentioned on anything? The news, the radio, whatever. And Henry Jasper sent this in.
What's up, Dave? This is Henry Jasper from the Voices That Carry podcast at voicesthatcarry.net. I have been mentioned on a few podcasts, yours, Daniel J. Lewis's The Audacity to Podcast. And each time I basically have a fanboy moment, whether I'm in the car or at work or whatever I'm doing. I got you guys in the headphones and I'm listening to the show. I hear my name and I'm like, and I have a fanboy moment and I immediately run and I replay the clip for whoever's around me. I instantly turn into a brand evangelist or brand advocate. And I mean, isn't that the point?
That is
thanks, Dave.
Thanks, man. And that is kind of, I don't know that I'm saying people's names so they'll go tell somebody. I'm saying because, hey, did you hear Eric's podcast? It was really, really cool. But it is the same reaction. So listen to what John Buchanan says here.
Hey, Dave, it's John Buchanan.
Yes.
I wanted to send this in because of what you said the other day in the School of Podcast Facebook group about having your name mentioned on other podcasts. It's happened to me a couple times, and I'll be honest with you, I still can't get used to it. But one time I'm sitting there, and out of the blue, I'm listening to the School of Podcasting, and I'm driving down the road, and all of a sudden, I hear this.
To make a long story short, I bumped some knobs on my mixer, and I'm distorted through most of this interview. It is what it is. I've done what I can to clean it up. In the process of cleaning me up, it kind of can. I know I'm talking to you right now. Hold on a second. John Buchanan, I'm sorry, buddy. It's got a little of that underwater effect thing that I know drives you nuts. So, John, I'm sorry.
I have to tell you, it freaked me out. I almost hit a telephone pole. I mean, it's like, holy mackerel. Of course, I wore out the backup 15 seconds buttons on that. So, yes, it is funny because now that when you hear that underwater effect, I know you think of my name. So that kind of blows my mind, too. But it is kind of freaky when you hear your name on a podcast, especially when you're not expecting it. So thanks for the shout out.
Thank you, John. And even if it's people you know, when I hear Eric Johnson has mentioned me on his show, I will go, why? Eric K. Johnson just said my name. And I do a podcast with Jim Collison of the AverageGuy.tv. every Saturday, and we talked about this week on the show. I threw it out to the audience, so you hear some of these answers came from the phone, but here's Jim talking about it.
I'm ashamed to admit this, Dave, but I actually get all pumped up when you mention my name on on school podcasting. I mean, it's and I podcast with you every week, but it's still one of those things I think you like it. And I listen to the podcast, kind of waiting for that moment. And there's times I'm like, oh, we talked about that. I didn't say my name, and I'm just being transparent. Right. I mean, I think inside of us there's this need for recognition. And I think when you mention people's names, it's neat. I mean, I think people like it. I remember I wrote in to Dave McCabe, who's the host over there, and we still do that show. Oh, I don't know, every 3 weeks or so. And he mentioned, I sent him an email, and he mentioned the email on the show. Man, for me, that was a big, gigantic deal. I just remember thinking, I've made it. And, there's all of like 1,500 listeners or maybe 2,000 at a time on his program. But that was cool to hear him reading. And then he eventually invited me on the program. That's what got me podcasting. That was the genesis of it. So, you never know the impact you're going to have when you read a listener's email. You never know and that's just reading the email. And then I was listening to Daniel J. Lewis talk about his 5-year anniversary. And Daniel was listening this Saturday, and I was lucky enough to have him call in and kind of relive the story. So this is Daniel from, again, the Audacity to Podcast.com.
Hi, Dave. This is Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity to Podcast.
How are you?
Hey, very well. I wanted to share with you a time that someone mentioned me on their podcast, and that someone was you. It was early on when I just started the Audacity to Podcast, and I mentioned this just recently in an episode of my show. I had only found you and Cliff Ravenscraft, the only other two podcasts about podcasting that were running at that point back in 2010, mid-2010. And I just launched the Audacity to Podcast, and I was listening to you and to Cliff, and I think I was mowing the yard or just getting ready to mow while I was listening to your show. And then you mentioned me, and you said, there's this new guy that has a podcast about podcasting. His name's Daniel Lewis, and the show is called the Audacity to Podcast. He's a few episodes in, but he hasn't talked about Audacity yet. We'll have to see if he does. And I remember at that time, you were completely unknown to me other than your podcast. And you had been doing that for a very long time. So to me, you were a celebrity. And for me to hear my name mentioned and my podcast mentioned when I had no interaction whatsoever with you, I was amazed at that and just felt like, whoa, this is totally awesome. This guy I completely don't know that I've been listening to for the last few weeks, binging on all of his episodes. He mentioned me.
There it is again, that you're just like, it's the same thing I had, right? We're all like, oh my gosh, they just said that. Here's a great clip from Doris Smith, and Doris does the Knit and Purl podcast.
The first time I heard my name and podcast shouted out on another podcast, the first thing I did was squeal and clap my hands. And then I immediately went and left a comment saying, thank you. And yeah, that was it.
It's amazing that I call it fanning the flames. We're always looking for new. I want new listeners. And sure, we all want new listeners. We want our audience to be bigger. And we spend so much time trying to find that listener wherever they are, right? We always say podcast promotion is simple. It's just not easy. And that is, know who your audience is, create content that will impact them or inspire them, go to where they are, make friends with them. That's the one we always want to skip, so that they care about what you say and always bring value, and then point them at your podcast. And so when you have that relationship, that's the thing. When they're like, oh my gosh. And even Daniel said, it's whether you want to be or not, when you're behind the mic, you're just kind of the celebrity, because not everybody is doing this. One of the things Daniel talks about is the audacity the courage to podcast, but it's cool because you can actually make somebody's day. I heard Jen from the Congressional Dish. I heard her on ProfitCast, and then I heard her on podcastjunkies.com. And ProfitCast is ProfitCastUniverse.com, my buddy Brian over there. And I know Jen. I've had a couple of different hangouts with her, and I was like, I should go listen to her podcast. And check this out. She goes into what Congress is doing here in the U.S. and actually reads the bills, like cover to cover. This is something that our actual congressmen don't do, and congresswomen. And then she explains it in plain English. And I listened to it. I'm like, this is a phenomenal podcast. I can't believe what is going on. And I could go down a tremendous rabbit hole here on what's wrong with the United States of America. But I emailed her immediately and said, Jen, this is really, really cool. Keep up the good work. Well, she then said, what a great way to start the day. Thank you for the email. Yada, yada, yada. You made my day. Now, this sounds weird, but it made my day that I had made her day. Does that make any sense? Well, just by saying, hey, good job. Keep up the good work. I really like the show. So it works both ways as well. And so we got a couple more clips here. My buddy Jason Bryant from Matt Talk Online. If you're into college wrestling, you got to check out Matt Talk Online. But here is Jason.
And I remember like I said, I kind of touched on it the first time you mentioned my interactions with anything in this community. I was like, yes, people know who I am. It's like, and it's different because, I mean, in wrestling, when I mention somebody, they have the exact same response. So if I mention somebody on my shows, they're like, yes. And it's just weird to be put in that situation where you're the guy that's like, you become the fan versus, the authority in the space. So, I did that when I was calling in sports radio back in the day. Back in the day, I can do that pretty good too, Dave. But I'd call in sports radio, and then with that 7-second delay, I turn it down, and I could hear myself at the end of the call. And I've been doing that since I was 10 years old.
10 years old. We've all been doing that. I think that's half of us why we want a podcast is because we called into radio stations. We wanted to be on the radio, and now you can basically have your own. And again, you'll hear where some of these are phone calls every Saturday, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. AskThePodcastCoach.com/live. But I was thinking about this. I heard Jason's clip, and I'm going to play you a clip from a movie and hope that this is enough to get me into the fair use thing here. But this is from The Jerk, and starring Steve Martin. If you've never seen this movie, you need to watch it. It's hilarious. But here he is.
The new phone book's here! The new phone book's here!
Well, I wish I could get that excited about
Nothing! Are you kidding? Page 73! Johnson! Maven! R! I'm somebody now! Millions of people look at this book every day! This is the kind of spontaneous publicity, your name in print, that makes people! I'm in print! Things are going to start happening to me now.
Exactly. And that's kind of that reaction we get. Oh my gosh, I'm in the phone book. He said my name. And that's kind of normal. And that's the power. So there's two sides of this. Number one, it's kind of fun because I know that it's just a dude behind the microphone. It's just some lovely lady that said my name. But you still go, oh my God. Giddy is what we get. And yet it's just part of that. So the other thing I want to say here is be careful with this. And Jim and I were talking about this on Saturday. And thanks to the chat room on Saturday, you guys were awesome. Does this mean that my next podcast is going, welcome to the School of Podcasting on episode number 468. Let me read everybody that's listening. All right, here's Ken Blanchard and, going down the road and Ryan K. Parker. Congratulations, Ray Ortega, etc. Mike Dell, who we have another clip from here. In fact, let's go ahead and go to Mike Dell. I know I heard my name on the Daily Source Code, not the Daily Source Code, the No Agenda Show. And I expected that because I gave them a donation. And even when you expect to hear your name, it still makes you go, oh my gosh. And speaking of the No Agenda Show, before there was the No Agenda Show, there was the guy that helped invent podcasting, and that is good old Adam Curry. And Mike Dell from Podcast Help Desk has a little story about that.
Hey, and I just want to tell you my story about somebody mentioning me.
Okay.
Back on the old Adam Curry's Daily Source Code back in 2005, I recorded a little voice feedback for him about a ham radio podcast that I was starting, teaching people how to become ham radio operators, and he played that on the show, and of course I made a little flub up, but I left it in there, and he gave me the advice. He said, "Yep, leave it in there, warts and all."
Nice.
I never forgot that.
Well, and you had the experience recently where the local morning radio show, right? You got mentioned on that show.
Oh yeah, I got mentioned on the morning rock radio show, and then that's led to me working with them now. So that's kind of interesting.
But I mean, when you heard your name on the show, when you got out of your car, was that like the first thing you said to the next person you saw?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So give us the behind the scenes on that, Mr. Mike. Sounds like there is a because of my podcast story in there. But again, the minute he gets out of the car, he had to tell someone. And next up, this is our last clip. Probably a month ago, I was talking about the fact that Nick Suberling of SPNT.TV had done a show with his son, Ben, who was, I think, well, I know he's turning 7. You'll hear in the clip. But the fact that I played some of the Ben and Nick show, he was like, wow, check it out. I'm getting played on the show. So here is Nick. He called in on the Ask the Podcast Coach explaining that a little bit.
Still, it was really neat to hear my son in the show we did. I guess it was almost 4 years ago. My wife got a kick out of that too, by the way, hearing that on your show. So well done.
Beautiful.
Well, you made her day.
So right there, he didn't say it, but I don't know about you. Most of the time when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm listening alone. So that means Nick went, hey, check this out. Just pointing it out. Well, you said you've got 2 more. So what are those?
Well, the first one, I don't know if you may or may not remember doing this, Dave, but there was a show I used to host called Start Talking and Recording Today. I remember it was an email that I got from you, just kind of introducing yourself and welcoming me to the podcast about podcast community.
If I did that now, I would be sending an email every single day.
And it was actually like a video link that you sent me, and it was a video message that you sent me. And I was just taken aback by that. I'm like, what? A, how did you know I was doing a show on podcasting? And B, like the fact that you took the time out to do that.
Because it's my job to know everything about podcasting.
And mention it on your show, how much you loved the lightning round. You thought that was really cool. To me, I thought that was so awesome. And I was really, really excited to hear that. So that's the first one.
There you go. Okay.
And then the second one was when we started Podcasters Group Therapy, when Corey, Tawny, and we started the show. I was a little apprehensive because I didn't have the best of luck with Start because let's face it, I pod faded. I couldn't keep it going. And right. I honestly kind of felt like I had let you down because I knew how much of a fan of that show you were. And so to hear you sing the praises of PGT and really be excited about it, that made my day as well.
Awesome. Well, PGT forever, of course. And while I was a fan of the Start podcast, I'm more of a fan of Nick Suberling.
And because I was apprehensive. I was nervous. Like, what are folks like you and Daniel going to think of me getting back into this podcast about podcasting realm? I was apprehensive, and you both have been very kind and excited about it. So thank you.
Remember, no one will punch you in the face.
Thank you.
Well, I was happy to have you back. I was, to me, and no, you did not let me down. There's this little thing called your life that was going on. And how many kids do you have?
I've got twins. They're going to be 7 next month.
There you go. One word that says it all. Twins. That's it. It's just, that pretty much answers that question. So no, man, that's, we all have, and it may be, even if you had no kids, if it just wasn't doing it for you, I think you said on Podcasters Group Therapy, you just weren't really comfortable doing a solo show.
Yeah.
And so, check that one off the list. Okay, bucket. Okay, I've tried that, been there, done that. So awesome. So cool.
Those were my two, and I appreciate all the kind words every time. It's pretty cool. It's awesome. And you're right. You walk around, and as much as I can show my wife and play the audio for her, like, she just doesn't get excited like I do. So it's awesome.
You know what? I want to go back and play that clip because I swear I just went awesome. So cool. Awesome. I need some new adjectives. But yeah, so there again, Nick Suberling. And this is where one of the reasons why I wanted to play all these clips, because you're like, okay, Dave, we get it. People like to hear themselves. But when I say stuff in a podcast, a lot of this, when I say people like to hear, get your audience involved in your podcast, it makes them feel giddy. It's not an opinion in many cases. It's based on feedback I get from people. And I will be the first to raise my hand and say, I got a long way to go. I come from the mindset of constant improvement. The worst thing you could ever hear me say is, I know everything there is to know, because number one, I've been involved with technology forever, pretty much. And I have learned that I have to stay constantly learning things, always updating things, because with technology, if you stand still, you're going backwards. And so I'm always trying to learn things, and that's just part of it. You got to keep moving forward. And so when I say this is a strategy that will, do I dare say, ignite your audience, that will, let's fan the flames of those who are already listening. And you'll see over and over, we heard, I got out of the car and I told somebody, I played it for my wife. I did this, I did that. And they're telling other people, we're inspiring them. We're giving them something to talk about. The fact that, hey, he just mentioned me on my show. Now, I mentioned a second ago, we want this to be authentic. And, I said, even if somebody mentioned you, because like I donate, I think it's $10 a month to the Rock and Roll Geek Show. I love Michael Butler, rockandrollgeek.com. Been podcasting since 2004. He's the original music podcaster. I am proud to support my friend. He lost his job, and I'm like, you know what? That's, a couple Mountain Dews a week. And now, it's not quite the same jolt because, well, he's supposed to read my name because I gave him $10. But here's the thing. When somebody mentions you, and they didn't have to, that's where you get the maximum effect. And I'm going to credit Jim Collison from theaverageguy.tv for that one. That's really what I think ignites the spark, because I wasn't expecting to hear these guys talk about me on the Moondog Marketing Show. When they did, I was like, holy cow, oh my God, right? So be careful with people's names, though. Can we take just a little tangent for a second? Just a little one.
And now, it's time for a pet peeve.
You've probably heard it said. Now, we're talking about using people's names. We're talking about honest, authentic use of people's names in your show. And the problem is, I've heard people say the everyone's favorite word is their name. Well, number one, that paints everyone as a ginormous egomaniac. And I get that. And really, this episode kind of helps illustrate that. But I do hate the fake use of names, especially when I'm interviewing someone. And I ask them and I say, so what got you into podcasting? And they go, Dave, that's a good question. Because first things first, it's not a good question. What got you into podcasting? That didn't inspire you to, what? I hate that. And then they'll go, that's a good question, Dave. And Dave, when I was doing this, and Dave, and I'm like, okay, it's like keyword stuffing on a website. You're saying my name over and over and over to try and stimulate me. It's, maybe I'm going to, I liked this guy when I interviewed him. I like this guy twice as much because he said my name 50 times during the interview. It's a strategy used by telemarketers. And so podcasting is about being real. So when I hear somebody, if I'm interviewing them and they go, that's a good question, Dave, I'm like, oh, this is some sort of neuro-linguistic programming that they're, so anyway, please quit trying to butter me up with my name. Because between you and me, I'm pretty sure you can do this as well. You can smell that stuff a mile away. Don't you think so, Mr. Jackson? That's right, Mr. Jackson. Thank you, Mr. Okay. Really? Seriously. Okay, so end of rant. So it's the authentic use of names that you can fan the flames of those who are already listening to you, give them something to talk about, and inspire them to it's for me, in the same way, think of it this way, in the same way that when you get that feedback, that email from somebody, that when I got the thing from Max Flight, and he said, hey, Dave, that was a really good podcast. I got a lot of feedback on that with dealing with haters. And when Max said, this is a good thing, you should invite people to a discussion. And I was like, oh, because I actually said that. Last week's episode was actually recorded twice, and I'll explain that in a second here. But it was in the first version, and I either missed it in my notes or whatever, and I was like, oh, I got to bring that back. But it was cool to know that Max was listening. And so it's one of those things where, in the same way that when you get feedback from your audience, when you can somehow include them in the conversation, even if it's me saying, I can't wait till the 30th of this month to go to the Cleveland Podcasters Meetup. There's 8 people that just went, hey, he's talking about me. So think about that. Try to involve your audience, especially when you are tempted to put the word only in front of your audience. In meaning when you say, well, I've only got 70 downloads. First of all, that's not, that's almost offensive in my world. But when you've only got 25 people listening, then definitely go out, reach out and touch those folks and get them maximum impact so they can go out and really help spread your message and your podcast, because that's your, I hate this phrase, but they're your sales team. They are your brand evangelists. And, today's clips help prove that. And I mentioned this earlier that New Media Expo will be April 18th through the 21st in Las Vegas. We also have speaker submissions open for that. And if you're new to the show, I am the director of podcasting for the New Media Expo. Coming up in July, I will be speaking at Podcast Movement. I'm really looking forward to that because I'm not working it. July 31st to August 2nd. If you haven't registered yet, use the coupon code SOP. That is in Fort Worth, Texas. In September 12th through the 13th, if you're on the other side of the pond, check out New Media Europe at newmediaeurope.com. Couple other things going on August 15th and 16th. So basically the weekend about before Podcast Movement, PodCamp Pittsburgh. I may have to do that one because it's in driving distance. And speaking of driving distance, in September 12th, Westville, New Jersey, I will be one of the keynote speakers at the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference, better known as Podcast Mid-Atlantic. It's kind of like a supercharged PodCamp, and it's going to be really focused on creativity. They're going to be there's actually a creativity contest or a competition. So that should be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that just because it sounds completely different. And you can find that at podcastmidatlantic.com. And of course, I'll have links to these out of the show notes at schoolofpodcasting.com/467.
I was making radio shows for fun. If everybody does it, at least everybody I know, shut up!
And as we get ready to wrap things up, I went out to the School of Podcasting Facebook group, and Susie Price said, I heard my name on a podcast, and I immediately interrupted my husband's very busy schedule with a phone call and then proceeded to tell every one of my girlfriends they don't understand podcasting. They were like, so you were on the radio? Hey, that's cool. Here's another story. Bill Becker says, back in the 80s, I was interning at KISS FM in Hollywood, working in the newsroom, but I also drove a truck when not at the station. Rick Dees mentioned me on the air for some work we were doing. And he says, I rolled down my windows on the 405 and was telling everyone that was me. Everyone was looking at me like I'd lost it. And speaking of saying people's names, I want to say thank you to Bald Eagle 90, who gave me a 5-star review in iTunes. He says, there's a new approach of giving to your audience and they will give back. I asked Dave a question via SpeakPipe. Not only did he get back to me within an hour, he provided a comprehensive video response. I'm not sure he can do this for everyone. That's true, by the way. But I can tell you I really appreciate his listener service. His podcasts are chock full of information. You should really tune in and follow this guy. He knows his stuff. Thanks, Dave. Well, thank you, Mr. Eagle. Also, Kim532 said, this is a great way to learn about podcasting in a fun and informative fashion. Dave is the best. So thank you also, Kim, for a 5-star review. And if you don't want to take their word for it, listen to what Christine said. She is a new student at the School of Podcasting. She said, I'm listening to your videos and they are a big help. You are really good at this. Well, Christine, thank you so much. And last one here. This is from, now remember I said there was a guy that said my website was awful. His name is Michael Rutherford. And he just sent me a message here. Hey, Dave, we spoke for about a while about how awful your site was. LOL, smiley face, wink, wink. And I decided to sign up here. That's right. So I reached out to somebody and said, hey, can we talk? And he signed up for the School of Podcasting. He said, you should really promote what all videos you cover here, as there is a lot of info. I had no idea. He says, that being said, I think you should send people some sort of digital diploma when at the end of their term. And I'm like, that's a good idea. I'll have to figure out maybe when you make it to episode 8 or something of that nature, something would look cool, some sort of official with my name on it. I like that idea. I definitely have to make that work. So if you want a future digital diploma from the School of Podcasting, don't forget, use the coupon code LISTENER, LISTENER, when you sign up. And if you don't have a website, you can send me an email with the phrase quick start in the subject line. What happens is I send you a link to order your hosting for your website, and I use an affiliate link. So I actually earn a commission on that. And my way of saying thank you for the commission is if you send me an email, I will actually install WordPress for you, and I'll give you a free month at the School of Podcasting. And so I think the first month of hosting is like $9. So you spend $9, you get a website, you get a month's worth of tutorials, and Dave will set up WordPress for you. Now, obviously, you've got to do all the images, and you got to make it pretty and provide the content. But the basement, I guess you could say, of your house will be set up. So thanks so much for tuning in. Get your audience involved, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see you next week. And until then, class is dismissed. Take care, and God bless.